1705, North Atlantic. A pirate vessel trapped in a frozen nightmare. 47 men inside. Zero heat, soaking wet clothes. Packed like cargo into a wooden hull, no insulation, and winds slicing through the planks like they were paper. By sunrise, not a single case of hypothermia. Modern survival experts studied that night and declared it statistically impossible. They broke every sacred rule of cold weather survival, drank alcohol, slept drenched, crammed into unventilated spaces, let rats swarm freely, and even loaded hot rocks onto an already unstable wreck. According to everything we know today, those choices are a death sentence, and yet they woke up alive. This is the breakdown of how. By the end, you'll grasp that everything which seemed catastrophically wrong was, through a bizarre collision of physics and inherited cunning, exactly right. Let's start picking apart the madness. First, the cardinal survival law. Find a heat source, protect it, and cling to it. These pirates had a single fire aboard, an iron stove in the galley, heavily clad in sand and stone, with its chimney rooted up through the deck. It was kept meticulously far from where anyone slept. This wasn't laziness, it was absolute terror. A wooden sailing ship is essentially a floating matchstick. The hull, the masts, the hemp rigging, the canvas sails, and somewhere below, a gunpowder magazine ready to scatter 60 men across the ocean in a flash. One spark in the wrong spot meant oblivion. Thus, the rule was ironclad. One cooking fire, carefully extinguished in rough weather. No braziers or torches near the hammocks ever. So the crew slept in total darkness and bitter cold, without a heat source nearby. Yet this was the right call, because they didn't need a fire. They had the ocean itself. The orlop deck, the lowest hold, sat below the waterline. No windows, no airflow, a pitch-black vault. In summer, it was a suffocating sweatbox. But in freezing Atlantic waters, seawater maintains a steady 50 to 55 degrees Fahrenheit, even when the air above plummets into the 20s. That submerged wooden hull transformed into a passive thermal barrier, insulating the men from the murderous air outside. Add 30 breathing humans in that sealed space, and you have 30 natural radiators running all night. It wasn't warm, but it was survivable. Second, the clothing. Survival manuals scream, never sleep in wet fabric. Cotton and linen are death when soaked, pulling heat from your body all night. Pirates slept in damp wool every single night. Sea spray soaked through every seam, condensation dripped from the cold timbers overhead, and bilge water sloshed beneath their feet. Their clothes never fully dried. They worked, sweat, and climbed back into their hammocks still wet, night after brutal night. Modern science sees a guaranteed fatality. Yet wool is a hidden marvel. Its unique fibrous structure traps insulating air even when saturated. Water can't fully displace it, so a soaking wet wool shirt retains between 50 and 80% of its dry insulation. The experienced pirates took it further, rubbing raw lanolin or whale oil into the weave to create a crude, water-resistant coating. The result was a primitive shell that smelled terrible but repelled spray before it could penetrate. In 1715, they had accidentally invented the world's first waterproof jacket. Third, the rum. Everyone knows pirates drank constantly. Half a pint daily was standard, sometimes more than water. It was currency, medicine, and morale. But physiology tells a harsh truth. Alcohol makes you genuinely colder while making you feel hot. It dilates blood vessels, flushing core heat to your skin. You flush, tingle, and feel a wave of comfort that is entirely deceptive. That heat isn't generated, it's escaping. You are burning your core reserves to survive. So why didn't they freeze? Two reasons. Hot grog, rum mixed with boiling water, sugar and lemon, delivered genuine transient warmth to the stomach and chest before the alcohol reversed the effect. It shocked frozen bodies back to function. Second, the rum dulled misery enough to let their minds stop racing. After 4 hours exposed to winds that cut through wool like paper, they needed that chemical shutdown to fall unconscious. It was a psychological crutch that bought them precious rest. Fourth, the rats. This is where it gets genuinely bizarre. The orlop deck housed hundreds of them, not dozens, hundreds, running over sleeping men, nesting in rope coils, swarming in the darkness. Every hygiene rule demands their extermination. Rats carry plague, contaminate food, and are a floating health catastrophe. Pirates tolerated them anyway, because those warm-blooded bodies, moving constantly in the dark, actually raised the ambient temperature by a critical degree or two. When the difference between survivable and lethal is that slim, every tiny mammal counts. This wasn't a captain's decree, it was emergent, generationally transferred wisdom. You don't wage war on the rats in January, you do it in July. They were accidental crew members earning their keep by existing. Fifth, the heated rocks. This sounds like suicide. Before hitting northern waters, some crews built massive beach fires and heated their ballast stones until they glowed red hot, then carefully loaded them back into the fragile wooden hold. Those stones radiated warmth for 8 to 12 hours, turning the cargo deck into the closest thing to a heated room they'd ever experience at sea. It wasn't pirate ingenuity, it was stolen from Scandinavian fishermen who refined the trick over centuries in the North Sea. The stones had a hidden second use. They kept drinking water barrels from freezing solid. A crew surrounded by water can still die of thirst when their casks turn to ice. Positioned near the barrels, those hot rocks kept them liquid. The risk was severe. Too many could warp planks or ignite the ship, but getting the balance right meant survival. Sixth, the sleep schedule. 4 hours on deck, 4 hours below, rotating endlessly. Sleep scientists warn that such fragmentation destroys immunity and thermoregulation. But in that cramped hold, 40 men swapping shifts created a continuous conveyor of shared heat. Those coming off watch, their bodies warmed by labor, climbed into hammocks, radiating that heat to the men around them. The exhaustion was so profound that they fell into deep, restorative unconsciousness within seconds. It was broken sleep by modern standards, but it was perfectly calibrated for their hellish environment. Seventh, the sick bay. It was deliberately positioned right next to the galley, the sole warm spot on the ship. Pirates knew a freezing body couldn't heal, so they feigned illness, picking at scabs to keep wounds open, swallowing soap to induce vomiting, or soaking hands in seawater to look pale and desperate. The surgeons saw through the tricks, but often looked the other way during severe cold snaps. A warm malingerer was more valuable than a frozen corpse. It was practical, harsh medicine. Eighth, the grand strategy, migration. The smartest captains acted like birds. They raided northern coasts in summer and fled south by October without debate. Historical records show pirate attacks exploded in the Caribbean during winter, while northern shipping lanes went dead. Captains who ignored this rhythm, who chased one last prize, faced casualty rates exceeding 40%, not from battles, but from the cold. The best weren't just fighters, they were practical meteorologists who knew geography dictated survival. Now back to the 47 men in 1715. They were late heading south, hence the crisis. But 3 weeks earlier, they had ransacked a Dutch vessel, stripping it of every wool blanket and oilskin coat. That night, the orlop deck was packed tighter than usual, maximizing shared body heat. The ballast stones still held faint residual warmth from a shore stop 4 days prior. The cook was bribed with double rum to keep the galley fire blazing past regulation. No single miracle saved them. It was a cascade of small, inherited corrections stacked together. They didn't have manuals. They had a cultural memory of survival, borrowed from Vikings, Dutch traders, and generations of frozen sailors. They did everything wrong by our textbooks, Yet the synergy of those wrong choices created an accidental perfection. They survived because they paid relentless attention, not because they were superhuman. If this reframing shifts your view, subscribe. This is where history gets dissected to reveal the gritty brilliance underneath.